Hello, this is a completely unscripted tutorial. I just figured out how to do this last night, so I thought I would share my findings. This little setup that I have right here was created using two different tutorials that I just kind of combined into one that are available on YouTube. I'll link them in the description. And I just wanted to go through the system to explain how I figured it out. It's a little pathfinding type of thing, basically. I figure that's really important to know just because a lot of game genres use some kind of pathfinding, everything from strategy games to RPGs, even point and click adventures, all that type of jazz. So the first thing that we do is we have the node 2D, which is basically just a parent that can be used to contain everything. Next, we have a tile map layer. Now, the two tiles here, you can actually make these yourselves. It's just a 16 by 32 atlas, basically, that you can make just one side red, one side green. Let's see. Do I have it established that's an atlas? Let me go into tile set. Okay, yeah, so it's just the texture, that's fine. So yeah, to set this up, you just click the plus, click atlas, and then click on the image once you have it in your game files. Again, we have just a 16 by 16 red and a 16 by 16 green. And then the next step is to go into paint. Now, it's important to remember that paint doesn't mean you paint over here. It means that you paint the tiles themselves. And in order to edit the properties, such as navigation layer, you need to create the navigation layer over here first. So we have the navigation layer, and it's kind of hard to see, but the navigation layer is simply over the green tile. This means that the green tile is going to be the walkable area, while the red tile is going to be all the places that you cannot go. Then in the tile map area, we just click on each tile individually and paint everything accordingly. So that's a lot of the work done for you, actually, which is really nice. Let's see, the next thing I have up here is the cursor. Yeah, I kind of hid it under the little player sprite, but it's just the same texture, but basically it's just meant to indicate whether or not the player is clicking area for the player character to walk towards. Next thing is the goal. It's just a simple area 2D with a little collision in there. Not collision, collision shape. This is a little goalpost for the NPC to walk towards. So once the game starts, the NPC will follow a little trail over here. And you can move this into any little space, and the NPC will smartly walk over to that area. All right, the next thing is the NPC. Now let's just go over the contents of that. First, we have the sprite, which is just the Godot icon, little collision shape for its body. Navigation agent, let's go through the settings real quick. Path desired and target desire are reduced to like just a few pixels. The path post-processing is just edge-centered. Avoidance enabled is turned on. I think the rest of that is just default. In the debug, we enable that, use a custom color. Here's the custom color that we use, a nice blue, so that will be very recognizable. Remember in the debug to turn on visible paths so that we'll see it. I just have this turned on for the NPC, just because that's what we kind of want to see most. With the player character, it'll be kind of a bit more intuitive where they're going based on where the cursor is showing, but we can even show the debug for the player character in a second. And then the last thing is a little timer. It doesn't auto start or anything. It's just there for the time being. We'll see what it's used for in the script. Also, there is, for both the NPC and the player, there is a little area 2D. That's the circle that represents kind of their line of sight. Now, the timer and the vision both work in tandem, basically to figure out whether the player is in their line of sight. And if the player is in their line of sight, then they'll stop and wait for the player to leave. And then once the player has left, they'll continue walking over to their destination. I figure that's a very good mechanic to have for an NPC, just because that way they won't bump into each other. And you can even have, like, if say that they're like a little villager or whatever, you could have it where once they have stopped, they play a little animation where they wave at the player. Another thing could be if they're meant to attack the player, they can get close enough that the player is in range and then stop and then do whatever attack they want to do. Going into the script, we got movement speed set pretty high, but that's fine. And then var stopping equals false. That's the variable that will be used to determine whether the NPC is stopping or going. And then export var goal node equals null. So export variables are kind of nodes that you can assign to factor into the character body 2D script, or other nodes. So in this case, we have the goal set to this thing right here. Let's see. Now, when ready, the navigation agent will set its target position to wherever the goal node is. It says this right here. So we'll know that that's where it needs to go. And then in the physics process, basically, if the navigation agent has not yet reached the goal, that's what the little exclamation mark means, then it will go in the direction, or the nav point direction will be set to this right here, which is basically like it will create a path that puts it on the road to getting towards the goal, I guess. And then the velocity will be the direction that needs to go times the movement speed times the delta. And then it will also move and slide, which basically means like just keep on moving. And then here's the elif. If the navigation agent has reached the if the navigation agent's target position is still the goal, more on that in a second, and if the navigation agent has reached the goal, then it will stop and consider itself like finished with the assignment. All right. So the next thing that we need, these are the two functions that come with the, let's see. Oh, one of these is, yeah, both of these are the vision, I think. Basically, I think this is supposed to be on vision body entered. Wait. Okay, that's weird. I probably had this, gave it the default name before changing it to vision. That's okay. But basically the way these two functions work, and they're both linked here from the vision area 2D. They are both body entered and body exited. In both cases, we're specifically looking for character body 2D. It will check the name of the body. If it's the same name as the player, then it will stop. So stopping will be true. And then once stopping is true, the timer will start. So when the timer starts, each time that the timer, that's this thing over here, that's where it's linked from. Every time the timer stops, it will check to see if the player, if it is still stopped, that's what I should say, then the current target position will stay its current position. So that's the stopping variable at work. Basically, it just means that will stay in place, and then it will restart the timer. And then otherwise, if we're not stopping, then the target will change to the global position. And then this down here on vision body exited, basically this is to detect whether the player has left the vision area. So this is for if the player has entered, this is if the player has exited. And if the player has exited, meaning they're no longer in the way, then stopping will be false. So the physics process area will continue to move the NPC towards the goal that it's supposed to be at. We'll show you, I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. Let's see, I think that's everything for the NPC. And now we have the player. Let's see, their script is a bit slower. They have sort of their own equivalent to stopping. I called it slowing because originally I was using it for a different purpose. But right now it's called slowing. I probably need to change that in a second. But yeah, so we have a slightly faster movement speed. Let's see, actually, why do I have that so far? It's kind of, unless you anticipate the movement speed changing, it's probably better to make that constant so that there's less guesswork on the part of the system. Anyways, back to the player, they have a slightly faster movement speed. And then we also have this variable to detect whether the player, the person playing, has like clicked within the environment. And then we have slowing, which I'll explain what that is in a second. Now, we also have this onReady var cursor. So this is this thing right here. And sometimes it's not super easy to go backwards, like up the tree to the parent node's contents, if that makes sense. Usually when you're trying to use these little $ references, you're only allowed to do the contents within the root. In this case, the player. Well, it's not like you're not allowed to do otherwise, but it's just, you know, what you're going to be seeing when you try to reference a node like that. So one thing that you can do is just drag the thing over like that. This is in one of the tutorials, again, linked in the description, and I thought it was just mind-blowing. All right, so now that we have these preliminaries out of the way, we go into the physics process. Now, the first thing that we check is whether or not the mouse button is being held down. That's what this line of code is. Input dot is mouse button pressed 1. 1 is for the left mouse button. And then if the slowing variable is not yet turned on, again, that's what the little exclamation mark means, then the target position will be wherever the mouse cursor is. So that's where the navigation agent will know to move the player to. And then cursor visible will also be true. That's our cursor up here. And the cursor will be set to wherever the mouse is. This needs a little bit of work, which I'll explain why in a little bit, but that's how I currently have this working. And then otherwise, if the mouse is not being held down, then the cursor will simply be set to wherever you had it last, basically. And then if the navigation agent has not yet reached the target, it'll be the same code for the NPC, which is go in the direction of the next path position, this whole block of code right here. And then the velocity will now equal the same stuff, nav point direction times movement speed times delta, move and slide, so that it will continue to move in that direction. And then otherwise, in other words, if the navigation agent has reached the target, then the cursor will disappear because the player will have reached the destination. And we'll show you how that works in a second, or how that looks in a second, I should say. All right, and then let's see, idle mouse entered, idle mouse exited. Oh, I should have gone over all this stuff before going into the script, but yeah, we can go over that right now. So the sprite 2D, let's take a closer look at the player. So the sprite for the player is just the icon, the collision shape, that's just its body. Sometimes it's nice to have it be slightly smaller than the character so that they can navigate around obstacles more easily. Navigation agent, it's pretty much all the same settings as NPC. Path desired, target desired, 3 pixels. You can do it like 3 to 5 or whatever. Path post-processing is edge-centered, avoidance is enabled. And then we've disabled the debug for the pathing, but we can turn that on after I show you initially how it looks. All right, and then the player also has this little field of vision, same as the NPC. I don't think it's currently being used for anything. It's not. This is just kind of for whenever we do want to have something in the player character's line of sight. So like maybe there will be a specific like threshold, like say we had a little wall right here that when the player crosses over that, a little cutscene starts. Well, I guess you would use the body for that though, probably not the vision. I don't know. It'll probably be used for something. we won't worry about that right now. All right. And then the idle is a little area 2D. That's this little orange square right here. If we go into the inspector and look at, was it visibility? No, it was... Oh, the collision shape. Yeah, so in the collision shape, you can recolor that to a different color to make it a bit more obvious, which is nice. But yeah, so this little orange square right here has its own functions for whether or not the mouse has entered or exited it. Basically, this means that like going back into the script, you can see mouse entered, mouse exited are here. What these mean is that once the player character has reached the mouse cursor, they'll stop. So this way, if you're holding down the mouse button and the player character has already reached the cursor, this way they won't like jitter in place or whatever. I can even show you what that looks like in a sec, but for now, we've gone over all of the essentials for this little setup right here. So let's run the current scene. All right, so as you can see, the NPC has created a path where it's going to go to its destination if nothing is in the way. Let's get in the way and bother them. As you can see, because we are sufficiently close, the NPC has stopped and will not continue until we have left its line of vision. There we go. Okay, and then you can also see that where my cursor is at, we have a little indicator to show where the player character is going to try to walk to. And then even if we hold it down and keep it held down, once the player has reached the cursor, they'll just stay in place. You know, they'll consider their destination already reached. And then we can try to move the player into the red zone, but they won't be able to walk into there. They'll try to, which I haven't. There is like a way to stop the player once they've reached the wall, but I still need to figure out how all that works. But yeah, so now we have like this very nice, simple pathfinding system where you can do click and drag movement. And again, like this is super useful stuff for the kind of work you want to do, or for, you know, lots of different games that you might want to make. All right, so to close off, let's go into the script. I want to show you what happens if we don't have the this orange square, basically. And to do that, we can just go into the script and Control/ to comment out the code for that. Instead, for both these functions, we can write pass, which tells the function to basically not worry about it when you get into the when the function has been triggered. Now let's run the scene again. Okay, so they'll walk over to the cursor, and it may be hard to see, but there's like a bit of jittering from the player character once they reach the cursor if you continue to hold the button down. If you release it, no problem. But if you continue to hold it down, the problem is like it'll keep setting a new target position because it can't quite figure out exactly where the mouse is. It's a little too small, I guess, for the program to decide. And the thing is, we don't really care about exactness. We care about what's good enough when it comes to stuff like this. So we're gonna turn these back on. And again, these control the little orange square so that when the orange square meets the cursor, the player character will know to stop. So yeah, I think that's about everything. And again, you'll notice how the NPC knows to walk around the walls and stuff like that. The same is true of the player character. I think the only thing that would be nice to figure out is if there was kind of a wider thing, because you'll notice like when it comes to obstacles, the characters will just kind of walk right on the edge, which is fine. Like I'm sure it won't look um, especially weird um, when in actual practice of the game, just because they'll be factoring in all kinds of edges, not just from the environment, but also from other characters. But yeah, I think that's about it. Just wanted to show all that. Again, this is not a prepared tutorial. I'm just um, going over everything that I figured out last night at 3 a.m. So hopefully this will, make things a little bit easier. Just because, again, like, once you have it where you can have the NPC walk towards a goal, you can change the goal to any other thing. You can have the goal set on a timer so that you can have a patrol route. You can even have the goal be the player character and have NPCs follow that. Just all these little um, things where once you figure out these simple pathfinding bits, I feel like that can open up entire worlds to you, because it took me a while to learn how to do this. Anyways, let's see. I should probably explain which version of Godot this is. I think this is the 4.3 version. 4.3, 4.4. Oh, here it is. 4.4. Okay, yeah. So the only thing that you might worry about is the navigation agent. There was a little warning next to it saying like, "Oh, we might change this, or it might become defunct entirely, or whatever." Which, uh, yeah, I don't know, but yeah, I just found. And the thing is, if you go into like the documentation on Godot, they'll be like, "Oh, we don't actually recommend using a tile map for this kind of pathfinding. You should be using just the navigation nodes that we specifically have for that." Which I have tried doing before and just didn't find it as efficient. But I think there, one of the tutorials I'm going to link in the description goes over how you could do both. It'll do the navigation agent first, and then it will do the tile map layer second. I think this method is a bit more intuitive, but I'll let you be the judge of that. All right. Let's see. Just as a fun little extra thing before we close out, this is pretty much the end of the tutorial if you want to leave, but just to show off the debug where the player is following a path specifically. All right. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully this will be as useful to you as I anticipate it being useful to me. All right.